I mean, whatever the word high means,
Yeah.
essentially. So you can say that, let's say buzz or whatever it is, but
Yeah.
I think brain, generally brain, let's say, is one of the most potent chemical compound you can ever, create. So what high a brain gives you, you can't just at all reproduce it. So what is happening is that most of the time we try to reproduce that kind of high,
Yeah.
and that's why you slowly get addicted and more, and you can't actually get to that experience, because the experience which comes from the spontaneity of the brain generally is not really replicable. So once you really kind of let go of many other, you can say, pathways of desire, and just with pure practices which takes a lot of time, like meditation, darkness, meditate, like spending time in complete darkness,
All right.
music, listening to music. So these are hard, like it's very hard work, it's like
Yeah.
and that's why it is more potent. But once you slowly start to, or silent retreats, things like that. But if you slowly start to develop these kind of inward methods, your brain like activates certain experiences which are so potent, and you just need afterwards, if you have, this is how it is. If you've learned a technique,
Yeah.
probably this is what you need. Like a little trigger, that's it. Like, so that's why,
Oh,
just
right.
a little trigger, and then
Right.
you can
I see what you mean.
can get into it much more into. And of course there's a biology, precursors,
Yeah.
but that's what you can do, that's what the fMRI research suggests, which was fascinating at first about the meditation, that you can actually change
Yeah.
the neural pathways through meditation. And this was a very
Oh, wow.
weird discovery. Yeah, when I heard it in 2016, I was like, really? Is that really, like, just meditation can change like a complete way how the brain actually is structured through the neural, like if we look how the brain is structured through how the neural pathways are structured. And yes, you can completely shape it.
Yeah.
So, but it takes time, like 5 years,
see.
6 years.
Oh, wow.
Who does have patience for that? I want a glass of wine right now.
Well, I mean, wine and these sort of things it's sort of an distraction from other things. If you think about it, maybe everything else, if you go and have an adventure or sit somewhere else, it's probably a bit like, oh yeah, I don't want to be in the reality for a bit and do something more and just get sort of other chemicals flowing through my mind. Or sometimes you just use wine as a way of just detaching yourself from the world.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, so
but again, it's the same thing as you say. If you do it too much, then it's everything's to do with just distracting yourself for a bit so time passes. But you have to understand that there are some things that you can't distract yourself too much from.
True.
They just stay there.
True. So I mean, you what do you do? Let's just first start, let's talk about what are you doing now? What do you do, just to find out a little bit.
Oh yeah. So well, most of my time gets spent in probably teaching, and so I teach various maths, statistics, and programming modules. But increasingly more of my time is to do with reading, and so I've been reading a lot of philosophy since second year of my PhD, and I can say by far I've read more philosophy books than I've read maths books now. Even though my PhD is in pure maths, I can easily say that I've read far more philosophy. And then a bit of my time is going to writing now. So I just write some poems or some things that come to my mind. I write about those things. So as a pastime, making a living, I teach. But other than that, I would be writing more, I guess.
Okay, so last time we were thinking to talk about, and I stopped you. I was like, this is a really good topic. So, how are you? I mean, tell me what you were saying. At that time, so you were saying that you are starting to question more and more that how mathematics is actually helping us, whatever the mathematics is, and we'll get into it, but let's start from here. How mathematics is helping people's life. Like, there are things which are happening in life, and you have done PhD in mathematics, and that's not an easy task. And you were like, I'm like doubting probably, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so probably it's better you take on from now that what it is useful really for, and how students who you are teaching, how are they getting value out of it, other than of course getting a job. But
that was exactly, I think, me falling in love with mathematics from a very early age. Again, this comes as some sort of a distraction. When you fall in love with something, you're trying to recapture something which is unattainable. So if you try and look at the world and you see you don't understand it, and you see that it's hard to interact with people and it's hard to understand why things happen. Say, if you're growing up as a child and bad things happen to you, you get beaten up, you get raped, etc. You cannot understand these things. But you come to mathematics, and then you come to some scientific method. There is objective truth there. There's understanding. So that longing for understanding, which prevented you before to understand why things happen, now you transfer all that to mathematics. You say, here there is something that I understand, that I can control, that I can manipulate the rules. So I can do away with all the things I don't understand and concentrate on mathematics. And so you go with this, and many people do it. I was watching a series on Netflix called Queen's Gambit, where this girl, she has a really difficult past life. Her mother dies or whatever. She cannot control it. She wants to control it. She wants to understand it. She doesn't. So she transfers all this to chess, where she now understands the rules. She can control it. So she moves away from real life and then uses chess as a distraction. So in a way, all people who become exceedingly good at something, they do more or less the same thing. They've done away with the world. They say, there are things that I don't understand, but there's one simple thing that I can understand and get better. So that was the thing with me and maths. And perhaps growing up, I thought, this is the thing I'm good at, I'll do it. Now you get to a point, say second year of third year of PhD, not only you fail at what you think you were always good at, because you just reach your limits, and then at that point you see, I don't even understand this thing anymore that I thought I did. So it becomes, so you get disillusion from both things, that you come back to the real world and you never understood anything from the real world anyway. So you question, what is it that I'm doing? Then you question mathematics itself. Then say, okay, whatever it is, even if I'm understanding this truth, and I longed for the truth which mathematics gives me, but it's so devoid of my life. There is nothing about proving a really nice theorem, even though it's an objective truth and I know how difficult it is to prove something. It has nothing to do with my life anyway. Okay, you've proved it. Okay, you have a very good brain, but that doesn't mean that you understand social interactions. That doesn't mean you understand world. That doesn't mean you understand art or love or dealing with people or having a relationship. All these things are, you've completely removed yourself from that. And so, okay, you have an objective truth and you have a good brain to prove it. But what does it actually show you? Now you say, then you say, I'm going to teach students the same things. Oh, mathematics is beautiful and you can do this and that and you can send man to the moon. Yeah, okay, mathematics is useful and is brought the world to the place where it is. All the medicine and physics and all this is based on maths. But But that is all objective. That is sort of like, again, we are removing from the subjectivity of life, and then we say, okay, we just deal with objectivity. It is a good thing sometimes, and it helps you progress, and it helps you get a job. So that's why I teach it. I'm happy that my students eventually, when I teach them mathematics, they're able to get a job, and our focus to teach them something which will enable them to get a job. For example, I don't want to teach them all the pure mathematics, because even though pure mathematics is beautiful, and I enjoyed it myself once, I don't think it's going to be something that will eventually allow them to get a job. It's like saying, I'm going to teach you art and painting, and then hopefully you'll become an architect at some point. That's not the case. You have to do things differently. You can't just be living in dreams of, oh, mathematics is beautiful and art is beautiful, but yeah, you have to make a living at the same time as well. So that's what I do. But from the other point of view, then, if you want to understand life a bit more, then you need to do a bit of philosophy and here and there. But there is no truth there. So there is no objectivity. Everyone has their own view. So all you can create is your own version of the truth, and to say, this is what I think.
Yeah. So this is what you're pointing out is what the insight what you're pointing out, being in that world for so long, is that there is an overbearing truth of subjectivity, which is about raw incompleteness in humans who are trying to understand. First, they were trying to understand who they are, and that's a species. I think that is one of our bigger species journey. I mean, who we are, and in connection to the earth, and why have we been called forward in a way that we are evolved to actually self-reflect. So this is a big journey, and you're saying that that's such a complicated, complex endeavor that we are now trying to understand objectively certain things. And we developed these tools and languages. And yes, this language is really beautiful because it devoid various different elements which could make people and humans get lost. So it's easier to understand certain objective truths. And that's all well and good. But the problem is that when you escape the other aspect of who you are, which you are this being who has a subjective life.
Indeed.
And the reason, and it's all beautiful if you're trying to do somehow, I mean, of course, no one can do all of it. But yeah, the problem is that the person who is trying to understand the objective truth cannot reject or actually hide away from the truth of their own subjectivity. And I think that's where there's a little misalignment, probably what you might be noticing, or I've also noticed, where it is more like a way where they are hiding. And once you are hiding behind something, the courage runs away, the color and the mystery and the beauty slowly starts to run away.
Indeed. Yeah.
And also the truth which you are trying to at the first place, these, why we actually created the journey of mathematics or science, the truths which we were trying to face, you won't be able to see them because they are very, very scary, even in their objective face. So if you don't have courage to face the raw incompleteness of who you are, you're not going to be able to face the complete utter mystery which somehow lives in the beauty of, yes, mathematics. Yes, for sure. I mean, the various different function and properties of cosmos. I mean, how are they representing it to yourself? I mean, do they have various properties? Do they have various habits and personalities? You know what I mean? Like, if you have run away from a lot of sensor and beauty, I mean, this is brilliant. And I think you are like, this is on point. Like, I have never really considered it in this kind of manner
Mm.
that why this whole endeavor looks a little bit, that why do we have to convince ourselves that it is so beautiful and say it all the time
Mm-hmm.
rather than it's just being beautiful?
Yeah. No, I agree. Completely agree. It is, yeah. It is one thing again, as you say. This mathematics and understanding of the structure is, for example, one thing we did before when we were in undergrad. People said, why do you like to study pure mathematics? Well, sometimes, and I thought about it, and some other people said it, and I spoke to Tony Mann, and he said it as well. He was like, well, this thing is so far removed from real life, and the more removed this sphere from real life, the better it is for me. And I had the same idea. I thought I can understand something, and it has nothing to do with the real world, and even I love that as well. That it has nothing to do, and it has really such a nice structure, which I can play with the rules. That was my idea back then when I was in love with mathematics and I wanted to do it. Later on, even now, I think that's a form of escapism. That is basically, it's manifested in the sentence. I'm saying the more it has nothing to do with real life, the more I love it. You know what I'm saying? I'm just essentially, you think it's a nice thing, but then when you think about it a few years later, we're like, that is ridiculous. What kind of statement is that? It's like, okay, I'm a living creature, but I don't understand myself and I don't understand you, and so what I can do, I can just concentrate on some objective basic structure which I do understand, and it has got nothing to do with like, okay, maybe it is good, maybe it is. Again, with chess, it's the same thing. I just concentrate on playing chess.
So rather than connecting the unknown and abstract to the known and bringing the knowledge back, you start to slowly, and that's the good question to ask, like, okay, so this is a good endeavor which you wanted to do. You wanted to go into the unknown through the abstraction of mathematics, let's say. I mean, maths can abstract things very weirdly, which does not make any sense to the intuitive brain of what humans and Homo sapiens, how they have evolved. And it makes sense, of course. So to be able to understand non-intuitive thing, great journey you tried to do.
Yeah.
But is it now that what we, at first had out to do, you are now not able to do it? I mean, is it that because the coming back part is so scary that it's rather better to now distract yourself or abstract everything so further away that you don't even have to communicate? So this is crazy.
Exactly. I mean, the point is, some people don't even get to the position because how did I get to this position? Is at some point I failed. So I believed in something, and then my belief system crashed. So I realized that for whatever reason, it could be because my brain is not as good as Einstein. So if I was just exceedingly good at maths and I would rise in the ranks, I would never come to this position where I just question myself and realize there is a form of escapism in what I do. I would just say, okay, I'm good at maths, I get an excellent PhD, I publish a book, then I become a professor of some university. That would become my life, and so what if it's an escapism? It is a life which puts me in the attention of so many people. I'm receiving huge amounts of funding, I'm producing books, I'm producing new knowledge, and people are giving me attention for it. So what if what like now I think all science is a form of escapism, but if you're really good at it, so what? Be an escapist. But for me it was a different experience where if you go to that position and then you are not as good as you thought you were, and then you're not achieving the things you want, and then you get disillusioned, then your faith gets destroyed, then you start to see things in a different light. well, maybe then you're in a position to be able to criticize that ideal as well. Now you say, uh, perhaps because you failed, or perhaps it's the right thing to do, or I don't know. Maybe if I was really good at maths and I just kept publishing papers and books and whatever, then I wouldn't come to this position of saying, I think there is an escapism in there.
So do you think maybe what we can I think we can distinguish some
So to go back, it's not the thing. Maybe I should just say it's not the thing of bringing the knowledge back from the abstract world, because again, if you're in that zone, like saying, okay, I'm really good at chess, but let's relate chess to the real world. Like someone who is really good at chess is not going to make a good general in Warzone. It's just never going to happen. You can't bring it back. You're just two different people, and you can strategize in chess, but it doesn't mean that you can transfer the strategy of chess into a strategy of Warzone in Syria or whatever. So perhaps it's not about transferring it. It's about the way one lives, and some people, again, it's the subjective thing of believing something and then coming out of it. So personally, for me, because I've been in there and then I've come out of it, I can see the two sides of the coin. It would be the same as if you were really religious at some point and then you fell out of the religion. It's exactly the same thing. It's like at some point you were really religious, and then at some point you lost your religion. Then you see that you have two ways of thinking about
Well,
it.
I think it is beautiful, actually. I don't think I feel personally, when I'm hearing what you're saying, I think this is a beautiful journey, and I think more people should take it. And once, as you were saying, that maybe if you were so successful, in inverted commas successful, because you still are comparatively to so many, and in a way what you are saying, that if you're successful in a very specific trajectory, then you would not be able to see the world from a very different angle. But I see it, I see it as that is what the bringing of the knowledge means. That doesn't mean anything. I mean, now you are actually able to implement the literal perception of your world through the mind of numbers and a mathematician and an abstraction. And now through the stories and the ideas and critical thought processes, and how does that make sense? But what you were saying, I think, and I'm going to present it, this two things, and let me know. One is, what kind of endeavors do we take? Individuals, how do they somehow become who they are, and what service they think they have to offer, or what they think is a way of living. So there's this one area. So let's separate this area. So this area has individual, and then it has two pathways going forward. One is what the service is for my personality or myself for the society, and one person is like, oh, how am I thinking that what the life I should be living? And both of them can actually be interrelated. You can go from service to how I want to live, and you can go from how I want to live to what my service is at some point. So let's make time somehow relative in that equation. Now, in that scenario, in that zone, I think that it is very good what you're doing to question. And I think personally, you can use science overall, whatever that would mean for different people. And let's say it means reductionist, rationalist approach towards simplifying things to really understand and piece them together. And if you are going through that process and you're avoiding everything else, and if you're not looking at everything else, I think you're right. It could become like a belief system where your perceptions are blinded, and only that's the way you see the world.
Indeed, yeah.
And that has happened a lot. And I think that's why I'm a big fan of San Jose Institute. And so first, let's complete the other part. So the person who is saying, what is my service, probably is a scientist. And maybe, but it's like, oh, maybe this is, maybe it is more useful to also understand not only how to piece things apart, but also it's important, how can I put things back? Maybe that's more useful. Where else can I learn it from? Can I learn it from art? Can I learn it from various different experiences? Can I reject how I used to see the world completely and then try to live in a way which was supposed to be, non-scientific according to what I thought is scientific? I think only doing this is somehow bringing the knowledge back. If a person in their own personality, in
Yeah.
their own consciousness, can travel from being one to another, because the concept of self is very illusionary. I mean, we are not the self we were 10 years ago, and we can
No.
go into that,
Yeah,
later on.
yeah,
And
we should do it.
yeah, we
Yeah.
should, like meditation, like,
Yeah,
and this is
yeah,
what I
yeah,
love.
yeah.
Ram Dass, he says the goal is, and he helped me so much. And if I consider someone to be at a level of a prophet, I think now is this guy, in a very practical way. Like I consider prophet not like something, very sacred, or
Yeah.
I just consider like people have different roles, like Sufis and prophets and singers and walis, and they represent various different properties of the world, and prophets are like one of them. So he says that the game is not to be someone, the game is to be no one. So that's what exactly. So because even if you are someone is limitation boxes, the actual thing is to be nobody. So there's a great documentary called Becoming Nobody. I mean, he's amazing. Becoming nobody means that you can actually be a lot of things what you thought you are. So it's actually removing the container. Anyway, so the point is that through that, I think that if you can touch the most weirdest part of yourself inside of you, this is beautiful. This is answering the question of where the life should go, somehow by living your own life, because that feeds back, I believe, somehow into the layer of knowledge which we kind of call culture, which is, I want to define it much more, finely. Now, just to complete that, this is one area, and this is why I like what Institute of San Jose are doing. And this is, I think you would really like them, because this is exactly what they are doing. They are saying, rather than running away from the complexity of world, rather than defining that how much great objective truth we have found and which doesn't really explain much, it's been really useful. I mean, they build brilliant tools and instruments, and they are so specialized.
Yeah.
But how to use the tools is really missing at this point. I mean, we have made great, brilliant tools and theorems, and this is it. Like, okay, now where are we using it? Like, what was the quest? Why we are there? So they have been, somehow studying this in a very complex way. So biology, astrophysics, how everything relates, how the journey, relates. Now, coming to the second part, what you said, and this is all coming from what you are saying. I think bringing back and how someone is deciding to live, I think this has a lot to do with the illusion and the passing of time and form, like a physical form and time. I think in our form right now, through how we are thinking and how we are self-conscious, it's very hard to understand that the time is relative, and the time in itself somehow could dissipate, and you can somehow transcend certain things at certain moments. And maybe some aspects what you are living right now are going to be useful, and that's why that's the main point I wanted to bring it. Maybe it really isn't anything right now, and maybe what you are doing right now means nothing, but really you might be one of those people who have heard the call of future. And future doesn't mean anything, it's just a way of maybe listening to the patterns of like really listening to the deep patterns of vibration of nature, and trying to be like, oh, I think maybe our transcendence as a life form, and when I say life, I've said it many times, I don't mean just Homo sapien, I mean life, like Gaia itself, and maybe do certain things which might be meaningful way later on. So So this is, I think it's that's why I was just putting it in front of you. It's just like there is so many variations which came up when you were talking about these things, like how to live, and
Yeah.
also what could it be like. Me might be trans, because I've seen so many people
Mm-hmm.
um really saying things which were 200 years ahead of really their time, and they
Yeah.
could really listen deeply through
It's,
their intuitions.
mm-hmm.
So I mean, yeah, I just wanted to put bit more,
Yeah. Yeah.
what I was
Completely.
thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I quite like that. Some two things you said I wanted to touch upon it. It was one was with the experience you said that I had, and so I thought about it while you were talking as well, and we touched upon it a few times more. You said it. It's again, it was the failure. So if I had been very successful at some point and at something, and I would just keep going and going and become at the age of 80 I would be a really famous professor. Okay, if I hadn't had that failure, it's again something that maybe I heard Jordan Peterson talks about in a lecture, that you go to this underworld where you think something is right, and then you fail and you go back down there, and if you survive and come back up, then you bring back with you something infinitely more powerful, because you've left behind all those things you thought you were gonna do. So you left behind all that past and the future you imagined for yourself. Now you have to create something different, and once you create something different, again goes back to what you said, is that transfer of knowledge, of where I at one point I was really good at understanding pure mathematical structures, and I really did enjoy doing that. At one point now I transfer my power and try to do it into, say, poetry or into art, and so there is, even though it's a very new thing for me to do, to read philosophy, poetry, art, and I've come to believe in that more now than mathematics, which is quite very different things. But one is to do with huge amount of feelings. You can't write a poem without being in love, for example. There is no single line of poetry you can produce without having that huge amount of emotions inside you, which have no reason. So there's no rationale to it. It's how different they are, and you can't do any mathematics with. If you're in love, there's no way you can be rational anymore. There's no way you can do any mathematics. So you see, they're quite different things, and so it is exactly goes to 2 points of you said, is that experience of really trying to get somewhere for a very long time, for say 25, 26 years, and not failing at that. And then go into that underworld, rebuilding yourself back up to then come and at a later point start enjoying something else. And now once this equilibrium reaches, you sort of pass knowledge from one to the other. Sort of use mathematics into not using, but there's an underlying current of you still remember those hardcore structures, but now you have these feelings and they come out, and sometimes they come out in patterns which you recognize as mathematical. Or if say I'm designing a lecture notes, then I'm more wary of putting photos there and having visuals there, and so make things short and poetic, and so somehow they help one another after a while. What it may mean is that you're never good at one thing, so you're not going to be that great mathematician, and you're not going to be that great artist, but you know what you are, and that's probably more important than the world knows that you're a great chess player or a great mathematician. Then you know that there are things that you can do, and so be it. Maybe you get disillusioned with both mathematics and arts at some point in 10 years or 20 years, and so be it. Maybe you find something else to do, but maybe that's life as well. Maybe that's a life of an underdog, I should say. When you are not that person who wins all the time and is like, I'm really good at just winning chess all the time. Okay, but what do you do if you're not that person? What do you still have to live? Huh? It's not like you just sit there and cry because I wasn't say this great Gauss or Riemann or who were pinnacles of mathematics. So what I wasn't. I still have to do some, not that I have to do it, but still, I have a me and I have to deal with it.
Yeah, I love it that you are like somehow putting this failure and success into the prices which you pay for failing and the price you pay for success, and how we, or how even you, like talking about it, like I love this failure. I mean, I don't want to change it. I know that this is, in a way, how you saw the world.
Yeah.
For you, it is a failure.
Yeah.
And you had it has a emotional cost and burden.
I mean, it wasn't an academic failure, because I did finish with a PhD, but it was an inner failure of me understanding that, okay, I can get a good PhD and I can, but it does feel as if through the PhD I've come to this understanding that I am not going to be that great. Say, you've seen Beautiful Mind, right?
Yeah.
I was inspired by that guy, and I growing up I thought I would be him. But when you reach a stage, you're never gonna even reach smallest a nail of this guy, a hair of this. They're just never gonna happen. You can just see it. So,
but I mean,
but you're still successful academically. You just not what you wanted to be.
Exactly. I mean, but this is the crazy part, is that that you, in your mind, you there's a comparison. There's a problem with comparisons anyway. Like, everyone has their own type.
Exactly.
That guy, Alan Turing, did not want to be Alan Turing.
Exactly.
Okay?
Yeah.
He never wanted to be Alan Turing.
He just actually was.
He just happens to be Alan Turing.
Yeah.
And you or anyone else trying to compare to who that would be, always we will fail in some way. But that failure, I consider it so beautiful, because if that puts you in where you are right now, actually, understanding two things, it is a beautiful failure. But I think there is a cost.
You're not Alan Turing. You are you now.
Exactly. Oh my God. Like,
exactly.
If you are, you're like, this is such a beautiful, if you are Kevin, and you finding who Kevin is, rather than trying to be Alan Turing, what a beautiful price.
Exactly. So that's what happens. That's when you try so hard, you fail. I mean, it's not always the case. It is for you to be able to accept it as well, if I may say so. So some people cannot deal with it, and that could be something difficult. It is the same. I mean, it's not it's an old theory. If you read Crime and Punishment with Dostoevsky, there's a guy called Raskolnikov there, and so he thinks he can do anything.
Oh yeah. Yes.
So he thinks, I can kill and I can get away with it. Why? Because Napoleon could kill and become emperor and get away with it. And Napoleon, in a sense, if you're able to be that kind of Napoleon type of guy, it's like you have no not that you don't have conscience, but other people's lives mean nothing to you, because you conquer and you go and destroy cities and take over. So Raskolnikov thinks, if Napoleon can do all that, I want to be like him. I kill this loathsome woman who lends money for huge interest. I mean, she's no good to the society. She's like a, she has no children. She only lends you money with huge interest and just gathers up the interest. She has no one to give it to. She helps no one else. So I kill this woman. I take her money away, and I do many good things with their money. And I can deal with the burden of killing someone. Yeah. He thinks so. He thinks he's able to be Napoleon, type of guy who just do things. And he kills the woman, and he goes mad.
And hell break loose.
Yeah, it's not that it's not he goes mad because he's killed someone. He goes mad because he cannot understand himself not to be Napoleon, because he believed himself so badly to reach this guy, and he just cannot believe that he's never gonna be that guy. So that drives him mad. It's not the crime that drives me, man. It's himself not being able to realize himself.
I think this is a great book, and it's on my list. And I mean, I've heard this much, and I really wanna, and I would like, this is a great book for anyone who, if we feel like that, oh, I've now found out that, oh, all the rules and the, um, norms which have been told to me were all lie because they are just made up by society and all that, and it is at some level really true. So now I can just do anything. And I think it's a good book if you're at that stage to read, because there are certain things which could be done in a life form which you are, in a society where you live, in a capabilities which you have, in an evolution through which you have developed a subjectivity where it had certain, it's just by being who this thing is, there are certain limitations. You can think that I can do anything,
Yeah.
but the consequences would actually be so great that you won't be at all who you really think and you want to ever be.
Yeah.
And so there's another film, I think it's a great film by Woody Allen's. It's called The Irrational Man.
Okay.
An Irrational Man, I think. It is with Joaquin Phoenix. It's exactly, he's made, I think, inspired by this. This is this guy who is a professor, is cool, philosophy theories, and that's exactly what he did. He, did something like that, and yeah, it's a fucked up end. But I loved that film, and then I heard Jordan Peterson talk about Dostoevsky and about this book, and I realized, oh, this is, I think this is the connection. But yeah, so this is beautiful how you have described that. So now, just to talk furthermore, in a lot, so a lot of people are, I mean, everyone, like I also, wanted to be someone, and you find out, okay, this is not the way actually at all. You can actually live your life. But on the other hand, how many people you think are now getting into mathematics and they want to be whoever, Alan Turing, and then at some point they realize this is not how it would, this film does not end with those machines limitation game. That's not how, I mean, the guy paid a lot of price also, it's not an easy thing to be Alan Turing. But anyway, so
I mean, all of them, it's like saying how many people want to be with Napoleon? Everybody. But that's the thing. But the point is, these people are 1 in a million, 1 in a trillion. And if you happen to be one, as you said, if you happen to be Alan Turing or someone, you would know it. But so it is clear that there are some certain people, again, there are some ideas on, I don't know who said it. There are some people who lead the society. They're like queens. Like if you think about the social life of humans are like bees. Yeah. They're 1 in a million who are gonna push the society further. There is an Einstein, there is an Alan Turing, there's this another person, Van Gogh in art, or various things, Proust in literature, whatever. So the other say 99.9% of the population, they populate, they need to sustain the population, and so I mean, we can't. It's just a limitation of how many queens you can get in a bee colony. There's not going to be too many. It's just going to destroy the equilibrium.
I think there is one more distinction which I have really noticed, probably trying to understand various multidisciplinary aspect, because I might have talked to you about this course or PhD I'm trying to, I think course of this sort of multidisciplinarity would take so much more effort, so probably to do it through PhD. And while doing it, this is how I've been living, and that's why I want to do a project like that. Otherwise I would have never. What I've noticed is that there are so many more Van Gogh, so many more different type of people who are leading society. And this is in Taoism, is that they say that the best leaders are the ones who you would never find out. The good leaders are the ones who everyone loves. The bad leaders are the ones who everyone fears. The worst are the ones who not only fears, but they are actually tyrant and they actually kill. So the really best ones are the ones who really nobody finds out. And I'm trying to actually discover them more and more and more, because they are so great and maneuvering things that you don't even know that they are there. And actually, people feel like that they are the one who are doing the act, and because that's the best way to convince someone what to do, if that's exactly what they
What is
feel like that they have been
they
doing by
doing?
their
Yeah,
own self. So
exactly.
there are so many other people I've now found and actually met, and I'm like, this person is a genius at a level which I have read now. But that's the thing. I mean, there is kindness to it. So the level of kindness this person has with the ideas this person has, there are so many opportunities of PR right here. But because the better use of time is not PR,
Yeah.
but some other thing, this person would never be really known. But the impact that person is making, how many people this person is touching, is so great. Well, we wouldn't find out ever. I just found out about this person
Oh,
by
I mean,
luck. So I think there's a lot of people, I think there's a lot of unknown people, so which we would never find out, which are great
yeah,
in that aspect. But the thing is, you're right, like there are people who inspire. Humanity is not at all
yeah,
equal in
in
any
any
way.
sense, yeah.
There is yes,
There's no way.
there's no way.
There is no way, and perhaps it doesn't matter as well. Like, as okay, we see these people say, I see a great chess player now. We admire them, we get inspired by them. We see big mathematicians or scientists, they win the Nobel Prize, or so they did, you know. As a living person, like, why we need it doesn't matter where we are. It doesn't matter if you're Alan Turing or not. Say, I'm sitting here, I have a life to live, and it is mine, and all I can do is to do what I think it's right, or I can probably educate myself. I can read, and if I can write, I can write, and that would be a good thing. Other than that, so that's probably my personal thing. I mean, if I can do more, I'll do more. But it shouldn't be the case that I'm trying to achieve something and I'm failing, and I should try and do as much as I can, and so striving to be Alan Turing. I mean, yeah, maybe you should try. If that's something you like, you try and see where you fail, like I did. I'm just gonna try and be John Nash, and at some point I realized, and that's a good thing. When the failure is a good thing. It's not. The failure is a success, actually.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to. This is what I didn't wanted to change the name, because it does have a cost. But do you see, like, this is the thing. If you are always successful and you're just going and you never go into the underworld, that is another, like, you are paying a price of not knowing a part of pie of life.
Exactly.
I mean, you can be famous, and I think that's another thing, is just by pure luck, some people would be famous.
Yeah.
Not because they are great, but just because they happen to be at the right space and the right time and with the right people.
Right.
On the top of it, because we have grown up in cultures, and this is what I've learned from evolutionary teachers of mine, evolutionary biology, that we would love to find leaders, and we would love to actually project, and mythify them. So we would love to create myths out of individuals, and we create heroes where we mix 10 different people and make this one person in the history. Because what it does, as you are saying, it's really helpful. It's like a beacon. So you realize that, okay, this individual is really strong. It also take cares of their family, provide food, and this individual has been, so much. And let's talk about a place where, before the history began, where the feminine and the masculine had a real partnership. And there's so many examples. And you would see that the people would have various different properties from the masculine and various different properties from a feminine. Like, they are striving to be this when they are young. And in the stories, you will see these properties. Like they would learn certain things from the feminine and they would learn certain things from the masculine, either male or female, whatever the gender is at that time. Now, it's a really good thing to do in a society which is much smaller and local, because what that hero would be is directly relevant to who you are. Now, you and me growing up somewhere, knowing about this Nobel Prize winning person, it's a great endeavor. Although the success rate is now by default is now it's not a good comparison, because what is actually a failure would be by any stretch of evolutionary ruler be the highest success of all time. Someone growing up in an Iran with the family, getting a mathematics PhD and then teaching here. It's insane. So if that's the case, would be, thousands of years ago, where you're, like capacities are, you see, like these are misalignments and like kind of wrong signals, and then our habit of mythifying people, and all of this adds up to making us believe that some people are really great heroes. And if we are not at that point, we are not. And also there's a lot of missing links of how many people there are actually who really are great society leaders and leading revolution. We don't even know. But that is also true, the last part, that some people are just born to maintain the culture. And that's all what they want to do.
And exactly. And they are good at some things they do. They're good at having a family. And as I said, everything is an equal thing. It doesn't matter if you're a great mathematician. It just means that at some point in time, people are giving you more attention. For example, 2,000 years ago, no one cared about Plato or Pythagoras. But even though they were great mathematicians, they cared about more Spartans. And, what I'm saying is I'm not devaluing any individual person in society, because that's not the case. I'm just saying it's not that everyone will be that. And going back to your point is we have these ideals at some point in life. We say, I remember there was a Friday where I was in my bedroom in Iran, and I was probably 13 or 14, and they translated this film called Beautiful Mind in Iranian. And I watched it as I was going to bed, and I saw this guy sitting behind the desk doing mathematics, and the spring turned into winter, and he was there in Princeton, and I said, I want to be that guy, you see? So I aligned myself, and I said, if he did it, I can do it, and I go to the UK and do whatever. And so I went towards what he achieved. I tried to match him, or if not, just go above him a bit. But at some point, so he says you're following someone to some extent, and then at some point you decide, now I want to have my own way now. You see, I was following to be this guy, and perhaps because of my failure, or if it was an internal failure where at some point I realized, okay, this is I'm doing a good PhD, but it doesn't mean much to my life. It wasn't more like a failure. It was like an understanding of here I'm not wanting to be John Nash anymore. I'm not wanting to be this great mathematician. Now I'm reading, say, Kierkegaard. Now I'm reading Dostoevsky. Now I'm reading other books. Now I'm not reading mathematics anymore. Okay, I'm still writing my PhD thesis, and then I'll defend it, and then I'll give talks, and I'll still do mathematics research and teach it. But now I'm involved in other things, and maybe it's a good thing that I spend sometimes in other things. Or some of my other friends say, and if you're not concentrating now to publishing papers, maybe you won't progress in your career. And so what? I'm not a career. I'm a person. You cannot just say, okay, you have to now be bound to this mathematics which you love, or you have to keep publishing mathematics paper, even though you don't actually know why you're doing it existentially. You're just doing it to become a senior lecturer, and then become an associate professor, and then become a professor, and then apply for fundings. All this is good, but does it make me existentially happy? Is it making me happy still? Or maybe sometimes when I write a poem, I feel happier. Maybe sometimes when I read Proust, I feel happier. So there's a price you pay because you're moving away from that area of focus, which means you lose in terms of your career, and then you lose. But perhaps you have a more fulfilling thing inside yourself where you're just doing something which you enjoy more.
You know what? Thank you for this. Is it? This is thank you for really contributing what you just did as being a mathematician, because I'm sure this is what John Nash would not have actually told us, and he hasn't told us, and you are. And I think this is exactly being sitting here and actually listening to it. It is very valuable, at least for me, to actually listen to what you have just said and your perspective on this, because there has been so many journeys through maths and science and many other subjects in the last few centuries trying to understand the truth. But probably this is just this is another angle of actually the truth of being who we are and the complexity of it.
Yeah.
And exactly what you said, like, I'm not a career, and to forward that question coming from that point of view, I think it's a great angle, because always mystics have been doing it.
Yeah.
Yes, always poets have been doing it, but I think this angle coming from there and some sort of a merger like that, I think it is very, very important.
Indeed, yeah.
I think, and I think this is exactly, there are many mathematicians who have been sitting on the porch and truly, enjoying while visualizing the universe with all of their properties. But I feel like that those people are very few. I mean, there are very few of those mathematicians who are truly grasping a very further away kind of properties, and they were born to be mathematicians.
Exactly. That's exactly the thing. If you're then that's another issue which is new. So say if you are now born to be Napoleon and born to be a great chess player and born to be a great mathematician, maybe there is no escape from it. You have to say,
you have to fulfill your service.
Exactly. You just do it naturally. Like Ramanujan, he was also an Indian mathematician in a very remote village where he just no one knew. He just started proving things which no one ever could in the entire India, and then he went to Princeton and studied with Hardy or whatever. So he became a well-known number theorist and from a very remote area. And then there are several other Iranian. Well, there was a lady who won the Fields Medal and she passed away last year, Maryam Mirzakhani. She was a great mathematician from a very young age, and so it is what it is. Life is like every individual is different, and in the end, perhaps it's about to some extent you need the attention of the society. So yeah, you can't just do something without receiving any attention. Or sometimes I'm surprised why Van Gogh did art, because no one cared about him for forever. But
yeah, most of the people, I think, most of the great artists or great people are always famous, and everyone cares about them when they die.
Yeah. But in the end, I think it's just a matter of you trying to situate in the society to do some things which sustain your life, and then perhaps at the same time trying to understand who you are and what you want to do. And so there's some balance of me needing to teach mathematics or wanting to teach mathematics at the same time as wanting to do arts and etc.
I wanted to actually ask you, and this is what we were talking about, is that so some people happen to be mathematicians or musicians, and they just happen to be at a right spot, which is their service, whether it be biology, whether it be environment, whatever it is, whether it be like a mixture of everything. And they found themselves and this is exactly who they are, and somehow they're also at a spot where they are also recognized. Now, these are the kind of mathematicians I was talking about to you, those people who, let's say, imagine the most wonderful things while sitting in their porch, because that is exactly how their brain is wired. Now, how thousands and thousands of people who are in mathematics, or in academy, in all of our academies, they are not going through that exact same experience. But still, and this is the question I think which was really useful, what you said, what are they doing? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, the quest,
Mm.
which is, we started to understand the world in its whole complexity. But now, um, there are so many mathematicians. Like, I mean, is that what it is? Like, this is why you were asking that question, that, oh, they should be really careful, that are they hiding again from something?
Mm.
Or, they're trying to really be part of that quest? Because what I have noticed is that all that beauty, which those few thousand, I don't know how many
Mm.
there might be few thousand mathematicians who truly are either advancing or really understand,
Mm.
whatever that would be, also see a lot of mystery and beauty in it. But I think there's a problem with translation,
Yeah.
because if you cannot see that by your own visualization and your own abstract imagination, word from their mouth seems to be devoid of complexity and beauty and a lot of mystery, because it is number, simplification,
Mm.
properties, vectors, design. Do you think there is, do you know what I'm saying? Like, what about so many other
Mm.
mathematicians who just happens to be writing papers and getting grants?
Yeah, no, I mean that becomes a career. So some, yeah, I mean, in a few years I'll probably publish more, and all those people have a job. They've chosen to do something, like you do something and I do something, and so that's a way of maintaining their lifestyle, doing something they enjoy. And so perhaps most of them at some point come to a realization that, okay, we're not going to be Alan Turing, so accept that, just live with whoever we are. So just say, okay, I'm just gonna do what I can do, just like what I do or Neil does. Or yeah, I mean, again, it would be a little colonies of in a mathematical community. Some people would be really at the top level, and then other people would be just the little bees. And they're still doing the work. They're still doing a huge amount of contribution. Every little helps. Every little thesis does something. So every PhD brings forward some small amount of knowledge. You can't just say, okay, that's not useful. That all that is useful. There's not. The guy who is picking the rubbish in the street is useful. This it is the same thing. It's just every little person who does a bit of mathematics or does anything in society is useful. Eventually comes useful, and that's the same thing with those people, I would say.
So the question, I think, what I want, what would be helpful, what I've noticed is that, what happens is that everyone is doing their work. I mean, this is, of course, this is,
Yeah.
but I think what I wanted to point towards is that the people who feel the complexity are not able to transfer it to a lot of people who are doing other things. So what then happens, probably, and please correct me if I'm not, like, if there's some angle I'm missing, and that's what I was feeling, is that that's why you see a lot of mathematician talk about the world in a very different way than how we feel it. And that's why the world, rather than looking like how it sometimes look like, mysterium tremendum al fascination, like a tremendous mystery, which has that pull, and it's also really complicated, and it also has meaning, sometimes it doesn't, it's existential. But a lot of scientific reductionist uh, understanding, and especially from certain mathematics point of view, is not able to integrate that with any kind of meaning back to the society, and it doesn't make any kind of sense in certain way, and it looks like a cold metal objective universe. And I think the reason why probably is because it's not like math is like that. I think it is also to do with a lot of translation which is coming from that this group of individual who feel it, and then the other ones who don't feel it. But the people who feel it probably are not enough communicating it in the language because they are so good at math, hence they are not, of course there's they're not the storytellers. So the students, there's so many students probably who hear it from them in that way, and this is exactly how they have been trained to look at the world, and that's the paper they are writing. And so you see, like, once there are so many mathematic lecturers and teachers, when they're talking about the world, even from mathematics point of view, it somehow hones in that the world is somehow cold and metallic rather than organic biomimicry and the mystery. Do you see like what I'm trying to?
Well, most of these people are rationalists, so they see the world as a mechanic, so they explain how it works, and that's they're really good at. So that mathematics and physics just tells you exactly what is the mechanics of life. There is no at large they understand how the planets work or when we might die and what happens with, but it doesn't understand our feeling. That individual feeling is never discussed with mathematics or anything else, and it never will be. So that's why they present you the world of rational objective truth, and that is code, and so that is the inherent design of it. It's just saying that's how a car works, and this is how engine works, and every single constituent part works, how the tire is, but how to drive it beautifully in the mountains of I don't know, Alps, or somewhere in Scotland, then that is something different. That's probably art. So that's what mathematics and physics does. They explain how the machinery works, and they explain it very well, but it doesn't show you how to drive it properly, and there's no way of knowing it, because how you drive a car is your matter of choice, basically. It's how beautifully you drive it, how nicely you go around the curves, and how fast you can go, and all that is a matter of choice, and it's a matter of feeling of, I'm going to go around this curve and I'm going to feel, or I'll be more cautious about it, or I'm just going to drive it somewhere, only be in the city, and then, or sometimes I'll go in the mountains. So that's a personal choice that mathematics can tell you nothing about. So in a person's life, mathematics has no role as far as it enables you to understand the world a bit better. The mechanics understand what people do at large, so study a bunch of data points and then infer something about an individual based on some probability. Say if 100 people, 90 of them bought such and such shoe, then one person comes into the shop, there's a certain probability of this person is going to buy this shoe as well, because the other 90 people. So that's what mathematics tell you. At large, it tells you how the behavior is going to be, but doesn't tell you anything about the individual feeling of this person, or how this person should live. Again, at large, it says that you shouldn't do ridiculous things like go and murder people or kill people, or just steal stuff, because at large that's going to get you nowhere. It doesn't tell you that some people do it and get away with it, then that's also a possibility, but that's as far as it goes. It just explains large behaviors and the mechanics, not the individual person.
Yeah, I'm aware of time. So just to like kind of finish it in a way that I probably, it is the case that I might have heard certain mathematicians to describe properties of quarks or spinners, let's say, in various different dimensions, in a way that they were able to explain even objectively that how beauty and also the mystery and the feelings of those, like, they are not scared. I mean, they were more integrated with it. So they still explained everything very objective, which is so far away from what human life probably, well, what it looks like that the human organic biological life is. But still, the world which they were explaining did not seem like is completely void and blind, and it's not just a mechanical world, but it has a it has a lot of quirkiness in it. And I think, and this is what the point, I think probably there are very few communicators who are able to communicate that quirkiness into their students who themselves are not able to experience that quirkiness through their mathematical mind. And I think this is what gives them, and then that's why our society, is becoming too number driven, mathematical in some way, because the policymaker love numbers. So if we can somehow, I mean, people like you, and that's what I wanted to bring it, if we can bring back the communication part, which is coming from your art and understanding and feeling.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I never thought about the connection of two things anymore at some point. And maybe it is something you should do. So for me, that science has a value and it does what it does, but it's quite void of meaning and anything to do with subjective life. So there would be two different things. So maybe what you say is something to think about. As you say, if you can show that the quirks and all those things which have nothing to do with my everyday life hold some beauty in some sense, then maybe something, and maybe it does need someone else other than me to to do it.
No, but I mean, you are doing it.
In a way, I mean,
this
not implicitly, not explicitly. I'm just, there's some element of me going from one thing to another, of sometimes doing mathematics. I think just seeing beauty in something means you love something. So if once I saw beauty in mathematics, that means I'd fallen in love with it, and once you fall out of love with something, then you don't no longer see the beauty as much. You still appreciate it. So then maybe later on you fall in love with something else, and then see beauty in that, and that becomes that the beauty is the subjective thing. It's like again, it's you can see it with human beings that you might fall in love with some female or male, and then I look at this person and I can't fall in love with them. You see, this is that's the thing with beauty, is it means you love something, and then that becomes beautiful for you, or somehow you're approaching it, and so then the beauty is the subjective things, and you just maybe I enjoyed mathematics, someone else enjoyed physics, someone else enjoyed doing something else, someone just, I don't know, enjoyed playing football.
Perfect. Kevin, I think this is exactly why I thank you, is because creating language in these kind of discipline is really important. Thank you for doing it. And we cannot, this is what Terence McKenna said, we cannot, and the endeavors of creating language from being at one discipline and one dimension to another discipline and to the underworld is important, because what we cannot fathom, we cannot think. And I think, thank you for doing it. Hopefully we'll do something on based of who hated us after this and who liked us. Thank you so much for coming. Yeah, okay. Bye, people.